Another thing is, I don't know whether many of you went to VEC schools. You'd have community schools, designated community colleges, and non-designated community colleges. And they call them multi-denominational. They are, in fact, denominational in nature. And the Supreme Court has said that community schools and designated community colleges are denominational in nature. So we're all pretending that they aren't religious schools. They are religious schools. They have the Archdiocese of Dublin now appoints members onto the Board of Management in community schools, and the same goes for designated community colleges. So community schools are either Protestant or Catholic, and the majority are Catholic. So it doesn't make a difference whether it's a VEC school or a denominational school. They're still integrating religion into the curriculum. For example, I sent my children to the only second level school in a particular town in North County Dublin. I said, oh great, it's a VEC school. You know, it'll have to be non-denominational or multi-denominational. But that wasn't the case. It was a designated community college under the full patronage of the VEC, yet it had a religious ethos. When I sent my children to school every day with a symbol on their uniform of a Christian cross. This was supposedly even a multi-denominational school. They said prayers over the intercom at around 11 o'clock. And at some of those prayers, sometimes they prayed for atheists. I'm not joking. I'm not joking.
It is nice of them, though.
So, the strange thing, in the last year or so now, the most complaints at second level are coming from parents that children are in VEC schools. It's extraordinary. And what is happening is there's a religious education course at second level under the curriculum, which is supposed to be for all religions and none. It's an absolute and utter joke. Because what is happening is because there's an ethos and a characteristic spirit in denominational schools and VEC schools, they're combining the state course with the guidelines for the faith formation and development of Catholic students. They don't have 4 hours of religious classes per week. Now, under the state curriculum, they've 2 hours. There's only a space for 2 hours in a busy curriculum. Yet all second level schools, every single one of them, VEC as well, are obliged to teach religious instruction. And in the main, it is Catholic religious instruction. So you will find that in most schools, there are only 2 hours of religious classes per week, not 4 hours. And what is happening is they're fulfilling their obligations to teach religious instruction by combining it with the state course, presenting it to all religions and none as suitable for their children. So when you enrol, they'll tell you that part of the course is a religious education course that is for all religions. Like myself, when I tried to do this, tried to opt the child out of religious education, was told that was for all religions and none, and they're making it compulsory in a lot of schools, and parents cannot opt their child out of it, which is basically religious instruction. Never mind the actual combining of the two, the actual state course is an absolute disgrace, because in the state course there's a section, one little section about atheists and humanists, and they're put alongside materialism and fundamentalism. That's it. That's what this state
challenges to faith.
As challenges to faith, in the section called Challenges to Faith, you know. And then when they combine it with these guidelines for the faith formation and development of Catholic students, they tell the class that atheists and humanists are running away from the ultimate truth that is God. That's what your child, if your child does that course, that's what they are taught. It is an absolute disgrace. If you read the guidelines at the beginning of the state course, it'll talk all about religion, and then it says it acknowledges the non-religious interpretation of life. Now, I don't want to get into all detail here, but if you actually look at the case law at the European Court, acknowledging the non-religious interpretation of life does not constitute respect for the philosophical convictions of parents under the right to education. So the state is disrespecting humanists, atheists, and in the state religious education course. And so the most complaints I got last year was from parents in VEC schools being forced to put their children into that course. It's happening all the time. You know, we've complained. I send them to the Irish Human Rights Commission now. But mostly, there's a letter. We have a website called Teach Don't Preach. And we have a letter for parents that can opt their child out of that course. And when they challenge the school, they are successful in opting their child out. Now, their child usually has to sit down the back. Now, in some cases, it's gone on. You know, it goes to the board of management, and then the board management might let the child opt out. And I think somebody then ended up at the commission, and they got their child eventually opted out. But you have to challenge it. But I don't know how many times, and how many parents have had to deal with, that the schools and their VEC schools keep telling parents that it's compulsory. It's even in this is a report from the Irish Human Rights Commission. The Irish Human Rights Commission is the statutory body. The government is paying for it. And in that report, they say it's not compulsory. You can't force a child to do that course. Yet, that is happening in Irish schools, and it's happening in Irish schools today because the state disrespects the philosophical conviction of secular parents. That's what it is. Our constitution and human rights law is incompatible. You know, and that is essentially what our problem is. And we just did a submission there. I think yesterday we published it, we sent it into the Department of Education. And we're making the point that secularism is a philosophical conviction under the European Convention. Because under the right to education, the state must respect the religious and philosophical convictions of parents. Now, secularism comes under, the European Court has decided years ago that secularism was a philosophical conviction under this right to education. And not only is there a negative right with this philosophical conviction, but there's a positive obligation on the state to protect secular parents. And this is the key to fighting the system, because as it stands now, the state and church think that it's only a negative right, that all you have to do, and they provide that right, is opt your child out of religious instruction. But it's not. It's a positive. There's a positive obligation on the state to protect that right. And this is our key thing to fight the system, to bring this out with the case law, that the state are obliged, they have a positive obligation to protect our rights. Now, you will see, I don't know, many commentators on the Catholic Church. There was an article in the Times, I can't remember who wrote it recently, and they're making this point. They keep saying that it's only a negative right. That's all parents like myself had. We only have a right to opt out. But it's not. And it's a huge mistake. And that is what we're trying to bring out, that mistake. The state have an obligation to protect our rights in denominational schools. And what the Catholic Church usually says, we do respect minorities, faiths, and we do respect the non-religions. But when it comes down to it, we have to balance all these rights in the school setting. But you can't, because there's no balancing with those rights, because it's an absolute right. You can't balance them. That's what the European Court has said. The European Court has said that this right to respect and this positive obligation is an absolute right, cannot be balanced against the rights of others, and it is not one that can be gradually achieved. So basically, they're in trouble, and we have a very serious claim of conscience on the Constitution and under human rights law. And we're really just fighting for basic human rights, the right to freedom of conscience, free from discrimination, and equality before the law. Those are those essential things.